thank you for joining me for a brand new anime series, Vinland Saga. I'm quite excited, man. Like I've said before, the moment I heard about the idea of this anime, the concept of this anime, I was on board. I was excited, and I finally got the chance to line it up as my next anime after Shingeki wrapped up, and this happened through a poll. Yeah, I'm really excited about this, and a few things. Now, it might have some historical figures. I'm sure it does. And it might be historically accurate in a lot of cases. And I'm sure it might have some fictional elements mixed in as well, right? Much like Vikings on History Channel. But that doesn't mean that, anything from history is fair game in the comments. Just because it's out there doesn't mean I've looked it all up. I have a decent understanding or, knowledge of some things about Vikings, right? Again, I have watched the History Channel show, though I'm not caught up on it, but I have seen the first 4 seasons and I think half of season 5. But yeah, the first 4 seasons are quite good. A lot of memorable characters, Ragnar, of course. So, of course, I get the feeling that I might be able to draw some parallels. Some parallels just might naturally pop up, right? But, I'm not going to try to compare them too much, but if something pops up that's similar, names maybe, or settings, or a trajectory or character arc, then I might bring it up. I really want to treat this as its own thing, because it is, right? And it's quite highly rated. There's a lot of hype for this, a lot of excitement for this, so I feel like it probably is the right replacement for that Shingeki slot on Fridays. Really excited. And yeah, this makes it my 4th anime in my lifetime. One Piece has been part of my life for a long time, over a decade, closer to 15 years probably at this point. So that's been like my one constant in terms of anime. But then, I started Shingeki on the channel years ago, then Death Note, now Vinland Saga, and then, Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood is coming in. So before I get into the episode, if you're interested in full length for this episode, or perhaps even early access to the next episode right after this, consider checking out the Patreon page. It's just an option for anyone who's interested in those perks or, content beyond the scheduled content. Now, this is going to be every Friday. It is replacing Shingeki, but, my long-term goal, and hopefully I can implement it in the second half of 2021, is to have a new upload for any series I'm doing on the channel every 5 days rather than every 7 days. That's been my goal, and I hope to implement that in the second half of 2021 at some point. And this was picked through a poll, and the poll was for patrons, so that's another perk, right? You can kind of have your say on the next potential anime down the line as well. So, another thing to keep in mind if you do consider becoming a patron. But yeah, that's it for this intro. I'm really excited to just jump right in. So here's episode 1 of Vinland Saga. I hope you enjoy. The opening moments. Whoa. Look at that vista. Thors. Oh, just like Maximus in Gladiator. Helga. Okay. He was daydreaming about family. Home, essentially, right? Look at this. He'd rather be back home from the looks of it. Floki. Okay. Like that. Oh, I'm digging the score already, man. Thors. He's a one-man army, isn't he? Look at him. He looks so disinterested, though. Look at him. The eyes. Oh. He was just thinking about... Oh! This is quite the set piece to open it. Oh! Whoa. Whoa. Most impressive. Okay, this is like stunning already. I've seen some stunning frames. Iceland, okay. Those moments of a new story, man. One of the best feelings in the world. I'm guessing Helga's his wife, right? And she was holding a baby. Got ourselves a youngster. Already reminding me of Bjorn. Oh. The horizon. Ah. Look at that. Do we have a young explorer? Oh.
マルクランドを後にし、わしらの船はさらに南へ下った。もっと豊かな土地がある。風がそう告げていたのだ。
Yeah. He would love to explore, wouldn't he? Oh my goodness.
そしてわしは見つけたのだ。新大陸を。わしはその地に名をつけた。かの地の名はフィンランド。
So this must be Leif Erikson.
すげえやレイフのおっちゃん。
戦働きだけが戦士ではないぞ。名乗りは海と戦っとる。すごいんだぞ。
Oh my goodness. Oh. It's got a collar. Oh, that focus pull though. So that escapee might have been a slave, huh? Ah, okay. Certainly have a profile for this man already. Oh, is it the man? It is. Yeah. Yeah, he longs for that.
どうして僕らはそうまでしてこんな北の島に住んでるの?
Oh man. He brought this man in. There's got to be a master, right? I doubt he was just released or given his freedom. Again, I'm getting to know the type of man Thors is. It's reminiscent of Kattegat from Vikings. Harold! Whoa, look at him. Thorfinn didn't like that notion, did he? He's got much to learn, right? Still young. You can see how much he, how precious life is to him. Even the life of this man. Halfdan! He might not make you go back, but they might come. There he is. Halfdan. Whoa. He certainly has a distinct look about him.
俺の奴隷が一匹鎖を断ち切って逃げた。よさんか。あれ。
Oh, that's the guy from
もう二度と
Thors' longhouse, right?
おお、こいや。法律も民会も犬のクソで。ハーフダンさん。つなぐぞ、貴様。もう軽んじる者は許さん。
Okay.
鎖だ。ゲドウどもはつながれて初めて人間の一員になれるのだ。忘れるな。
How about that? He's also daydreaming or dreaming of peaceful lands, just like Thors in the beginning of the episode.
しっかりしろ。おい、あんた。気を張れ。死ぬぞ。
He's almost drifting off to the promised land.
みんなここにいたのか。心配してたんだ。バラバラに売られたから。ここはどこなんだ。
海の向こうにヴィンランドという名の土地がある。そこは暖かく豊かで、奴隷商人も戦の炎も届かぬ遠い地だ。どうだ、いつか俺たちと一緒に
He's a good man, Thors. Good man.
この男いくらで買った？
Oh, he's gonna buy his safety, isn't he? Or his freedom.
父上、そんなこと聞いちゃ失礼よ。
羊2頭、若いメスだ。
3頭やる。俺が買おう。どうだ、ハーフだ。
Wow.
他の奴隷の前で見せしめに拷問せにゃな。
This man's really about the principle of... Whoa.
ならば4頭だ。
てめえ、ハーフダンさんの言ったことがわか
Alright,
る。
back up, dude. Yeah.
その倍といえば。
だそう。すべて3歳以下のメスだ。
Wow.
くたばり損ないに羊8頭とはな。トールズ、それでそいつの鎖を解いてやったつもり。
You know, I do like him. I do like Halfdan as
そい
well.
つをどこへ連れて行く？
Oh, look at that.
姉上悲しいの。
悲しいわよ。羊8頭もしたのにあっという間に死んじゃったのよ。
僕らも逃げてきたの。レイフのおっちゃんは。
Hmm.
ご先祖様は東から逃げてきたって。逃げてここに来たって。
ああ、そう伝えられている。
Oh?
じゃあここからも逃げたい人はどこに行くの？
Whoa, look at this. Oh. I have goosebumps right now. Chills. Whoa. His battle gear? Ah. All right, man. Let me pause this real quick. Ah, that was great. That was great. Right then, episode 1. You know, I've got to say, like I said during the reaction, it really is one of the best feelings to start something new, or sorry, to start a story, a new story, be it a film, a show, anime, gaming, a book. You know, to me, it's one of the best feelings there is. There's just this undeniable excitement that comes with starting a new story, getting that first impression, getting your first experiences with the world of the story, right? Yeah, it really is an incredible feeling, and I'm sure many of you feel something similar as well. Now, you know, speaking of this story, I've got to say it made quite a first impression, great first impression, no doubt about it. You know, this is a story that certainly, questions assumptions and norms. This is a story that certainly believes in something. I thought that much was clear. And of course, a lot of that is presented through this warrior with a heart of gold, right? Thors. And I've got to say, his characterization has been quite impactful just in this one episode, right? I said during the reaction, I'm already starting to get a profile going for this man and the things he stands for, and the things he believes in, and the things he is ready to stand up for. Now, I have seen this type of character before, and I'm sure many of you have as well, but it doesn't make it any less impactful, right? Like I said, it made quite the first impression, just the episode as a whole as well. Great first impression, no doubt about it. It reminded me of Ned Stark from Game of Thrones quite a bit. It reminded me a bit of Bill, Clint Eastwood's character from Unforgiven. And before I go any further in terms of really getting into the characters and the themes of the story, the episode as a whole, it's a stunning episode. I'd say it's one of the most stunning episodes of anything I've seen. Honestly, that was just beautiful. The animation, the background. Oh my God, some of the most stunning frames. Honestly, I'm gonna be grabbing those frames, and I'm sure I'm gonna have so many of them just from episode 1. Beautiful stuff, really. It really was. And I thought some of the sound design, the sound design was quite good. It was really quite good, and I loved some of the transitions, that sense of progression, right? Had some great transitions, and again, that sound design also played in. There was that one transition of the runaway slave outside, and it's a really harsh climate, and it's quite noisy, and all of a sudden it cuts to like the really cozy interior of the longhouse, right? And the sound's gone. I just love that transition, right? Again, the sense of progression, but it's like counterpointed. I thought it did a great job of introducing a handful of new characters, some more impactful than others. Of course, Thors is the standout of the episode for sure, right? But the feeling I was getting here is Thorfinn and Thors. These are the two character arcs that I was sensing in terms of Thorfinn most likely getting a long-term character arc, given the fact that he's quite young, and you're able to kind of show that progression as he ages, and then you have Thors, who's essentially quite complete as a character, as a person, right? So he appears to be quite a competent catalyst character, right? Quite an effective one already from the looks of it. And of course, a lot of familiar names, as expected, a lot of crossover from Vikings. Now, I'm not saying they're the same, meant to be the same people or the same characters, right? But, the names, they're certainly familiar names, Helga, Floki, Halfdan, Harold, Leif Erikson, of course. Leif Erikson. Everyone knows Leif Erikson, right? And Eric the Red. And of course, the siblings Thorfinn and Ylva, I believe. And I'm sure it's going to expand. I'm sure the cast is going to expand as the world of this story expands, right? I mean, it already did right at the end there. This unknown figure is essentially about to arrive from the looks of it. Or headed into that direction, towards Thors. And, he looked like some sort of high-ranking official. So, I'll get into my thoughts on that in a bit. Essentially, I do think his past might be returning. I mean, in Thors, you have such a unique character in this setting, the setting of Vikings, right? You really see how precious life is to him. Right? Every life and everyone's life. And you see that even though he is quite good at killing and certainly quite capable, clearly one of the best, you get the feeling that he's like a legend He's iconic. That's the feeling I was getting from the opening there, right? I'll get into that in a bit, but life is precious to this man. Even that slave, even that runaway slave's life, right? The thing is, you see earlier that Yelva is asking for a slave, as they're shoveling snow from the roof, and she's asking like it's just a normal thing. And yes, it is part of that world, isn't it? It is the norm. Yet, essentially at that point in time, she's not really able to, or she doesn't even think of questioning the moral and ethical implications of that practice, right? She's just looking at the benefits of having one because it's the norm, once again. But she has a father who's quite different, who certainly has quite a distinct stance on this, right? He's certainly against the practice of slavery, that's for sure. So much so that he ended up paying anything that was required to earn this man's freedom, or make it so he can essentially pass on in peace. And he does end up dying the next day, I think, or not soon after, right? And I believe Thors knew that his death is imminent, yet he still did it, right? And he made quite the deal, right? And that was even. And earlier they set up that they're going to be in for a lot of harsh situations, or a harsh few months coming up. And Leif specified that a lot of livestock is going to end up dying. Yet Thors, no hesitation, he made that deal, right? Just so this man can have a peaceful death, right? And not have to return to this hell, his personal hell, essentially. And I noticed that Thors kind of spoke of Vinland as this sort of heaven, right? And everyone knows that the Vikings speak of Valhalla, right? And essentially you get to fight there for eternity, right? In that Viking spirit. You have Thors here who's speaking of Vinland as this, or speaking of it as a heaven, this heavenly promised land to this man who's on his deathbed, essentially. And he mentions that there's no slavery, there's no fighting there, right? The promised land, essentially. I thought it was interesting that they had this Viking essentially speak of Vinland as that place, a real place, right? Rather than Valhalla. Valhalla is an idea. I mean, they certainly believe in it, but Vinland is an actual place established. So in that sense, through Thors, it's already such a unique take on it, right? Given his disposition, it really is so unique. And like I said, his characterization was so impactful just in one episode. Now, speaking of Thors, let's go to that opening. It's a beautiful opening. Those opening moments are really important, right? In establishing the tone, and it really established things that are important to this man, to this character. And of course, the title of the episode makes a lot of sense, right? It's this beautiful, peaceful, serene location, right? Place that he's in. He's resting. Beautiful green lands, his family's in the distance. And again, that shot was really reminiscent of Maximus looking on to his family. And, earlier I mentioned transitions. Yeah, there's quite a good one here, right? As he comes to and, kind of sees those dead bodies at his feet. And it's quite the chaotic and bloody battle that's raging, right? And he's in the middle of, yet he was daydreaming about this peaceful, serene reality. And his family, right? Those are the things that are important to him. And that's the place he would be at this moment in time. Anywhere but here, right? But he finds himself here in the middle of this battle. And, that's one of the themes, right? The reluctant warrior. He does his thing, right? And he's quite good at it. Like I said, he appears to be one of the best, right? This legend. And, he cuts down a plethora of those opposing force soldiers, I think, or the opposing army in this case. And, at no point did he look like he enjoyed it, right? He was quite disinterested, and, the eyes are quite telling. He wasn't getting any gratification from this, as Vikings are known to, right? They live for that rush, that thrill, that honor of fighting, right? And potentially dying on the field. There's great honor in that, right? Yet there's none of that here present through Thors. He's quite reluctant, but he does his thing. He certainly does his thing. And there's even a moment as he stabs that one soldier. He sees that just like him, this man also longs for his loved ones. He longs for a home, and in his last moments, that's what he thinks about, right? His wife. And of course, he had that altercation underwater, right? After he takes out that man, he makes a choice there, right? That's the big moment. And his sword, him dropping his sword, and it kind of sinking into the shadows. That's quite symbolic, isn't it? Quite symbolic. This clearly legendary fighter has made this choice, right, to turn his back on this type of lifestyle or this reality that he finds himself in. And then, of course, a bit later, it's oh my goodness, it's such an effective image, such a poignant image of the carnage going on, right? This is as he's on shore, but you see his footprints, right? And in the background, you see the carnage, and once again, stunning background, right? It's a beautiful episode, and that was one of the standout frames from the episode. There's some stunning vistas in this. So impressive, so impressive. But yeah, that image itself, that really does encapsulate Thor's decision at that point, right? Or throughout this episode, and I felt that even right then and there in the beginning, you could infer quite a bit, right? And it gets supplemented later on as the episode plays out. And, he decided then and there that this is not the life for him, and he's just going to get out of it, right? Essentially, he ends up taking this pacifist stance, right? And again, like I said, throughout the episode, you see that. But does that make him a deserter, right? That was the thing that was kind of running through my head as I saw the final shot of this man, this high-ranking official potentially, and this army of his. And it appears that he's heading towards Iceland, or at least that point or that area, right? Somehow it appears that they found out about Thors, who's living that peaceful farmer life. But it appears that his past might have caught up with him, right? And there's that great moment at the end there, that transition into the longhouse and the chest. You see that he's essentially, his past is locked, right? He's locked away his past, yet it's always there, right? It's always there. And like I said, it appears that it might have caught up with him. And again, it feels like he might have to take up that sword once again. Halfdan said something quite interesting, and he's certainly an interesting character, but he said that the only way to make a heretic a human is to bind him with law. And it appears that the law might be coming for Thors in the shape of this man potentially, and this army of his, or these soldiers of his. Certainly an interesting ending. Certainly introduces conflict. And I'll get into my thoughts on the character arcs. That's one of my favorite things to do, to figure out the type of character arc I'm about to, go on. Now, speaking of Halfdan, quite a hard man, quite a feared man. Yet he's a man of principle, that's for sure, right? And he's not afraid to discipline his own men, right? The law is the law. And he is not afraid to dish it out. He's not afraid to dish out justice. And you see that, they're not really on friendly terms, Thors and Halfdan, yet he does respect the man, right? He respects Thors. And, that was a thing I was saying earlier, the feeling I'm getting here is that this is this legendary man, right? People know about him, right? Or certainly people in this area know about him. And clearly others know about him as well. And again, like I said, his past might be catching up at the end there, or has caught up. And this serene, peaceful lifestyle of a farmer, essentially it might be coming to an end, right? Or there might be some conflict getting introduced to this lifestyle. But yeah, like I said, Thorfinn reminded me of young Bjorn from Vikings, the History Channel show. He has the same sense of adventure, right? You see that he's got this infectious excitement as he listens to Leif and his, stories about the travels, right? And finding new places like Vinland, right? Oh, Canada. And of course, Thorfinn himself also daydreams about being on the open sea and exploring, right? So yeah, it really did remind me of Bjorn. Now, the two character arcs that I really saw in this, or I see the potential for, and they are certainly at different stages. I'm speaking of Thorfinn and Thors, right? Thorfinn, given his age and his inexperience, and given the fact that he's still quite naive, has much to learn. So his character arc, his progression and development is the one that really screams out the most as the long-term character arc, right? And again, I'm drawing parallels to Bjorn because Bjorn had a similar introduction. And yeah, Bjorn had quite the journey, didn't he? And then you have Thors, who's certainly in the middle of a character arc, right? Like I said, he's a competent catalyst character, a flat arc, essentially. He's complete. So the real growth, the progression and development is going to happen through Thorfinn, I believe. At that age, he's quite lacking emotionally, mentally, and spiritually, right? And, of course, he's a child at this moment in time. That character progression is going to happen, most likely. That's the feeling I'm getting here. But, because of that, I drew parallels to Ned Stark and some of these other characters. I don't know how long Thors is going to be around for, though, right? Again, like I said, the one character arc that's really screaming out at me is Thorfinn. But, Thors, can I see him being around this whole time? I don't know. Let's see. Essentially, I felt that the character arcs and the plot is still in the process of being set up. There's still. I feel like maybe the next few episodes might give me a bigger picture in that sense. Some shows or some anime, Death Note. By the end of episode 1, you really have an idea of the plot and the character arc or the potential character arc, right? But here I think it's still in process, right? I'm going to have to see more of this before I can start applying some things, right? The usual things I tend to apply to a new story. Essentially Thorfinn's ghost or the lie the character believes hasn't been established yet, and I feel like it is going to be established based on past experiences with stories. His misconceptions of himself, the world, right? And his reality, all of that, I think, is most likely going to come into play. And you see that even in this episode, he is starting to question some things, and he's not liking some answers that are not in line with his perception, his misconception of the reality, right? Of his reality. Essentially, I get the feeling that the long-term protagonist is Thorfinn, again, because of the things I just mentioned. But, for now, certainly Thors is the protagonist. They certainly set that up, through his characteristic moment throughout this episode. And, I just mentioned that it feels like the plot and the character arcs are still in the process of being set up. And, they might continue in the next few episodes. But, in that sense, the first plot point is usually forced upon the character or characters, right? Usually something big and unforeseeable, right? And it certainly felt like something unforeseeable is being set up at the end there, So essentially, it felt like the stage is being set for some incoming conflict, and how the character or characters react to, this, or how they react to this is, it's really important to this first plot point, right? So, that has me quite excited. And, yes, the feeling here is that, yeah, the past might have caught up with him, but a thing I really liked about this is the lifestyle, right? Yeah, it is, throughout the episode, they show us that it is a peaceful lifestyle. and it felt so lived in, right? It felt so authentic. And yeah, it was wholesome. So like I mentioned earlier in the discussion, yeah, his characterization has been quite impactful just in this one episode. Again, as a whole, Thors and then the episode as a whole made quite the first impression, I'd say. And on that note, I'll end it off on one of the more beautiful and memorable moments of this episode, I think. And I think it really does quite explain or encapsulate Thors, doesn't it? It's as Leif is speaking with the children, and he tells them that, being a warrior doesn't necessarily mean that you have to fight, right? But, rather you use that courage to make things happen, or, daring to make things happen. I thought that was a great moment. And it cuts to Thors tending to the fire, right, as Leif is saying that to the children. Right, that's about it for this episode. Like I said, great first impression, and I'm really looking forward to episode 2. Quite excited to be on this journey now, beginning a new story, beginning a new anime. So yeah, I'm really excited that I'm into this proper now. Right then, so if you enjoyed that, consider dropping a like, consider dropping some comments, give me your thoughts. If you're interested in full length for this episode, or perhaps even early access to episode 2, consider checking out the Patreon page. Once again, it's only an option to, for anyone who's interested in content beyond the scheduled content, right? Or some perks. It feels good. It feels good to start another anime, and especially a new one. I really wanted to start a new one. Right then, that's about it for this one. Thank you for joining me, and thank you for your time, and I hope to see you again for episode 2. Until then, take it easy.